When I thought of you as grown, I had you in my mind.
So, we all know that Brianna's prophecy still hasn't been fully answered, and naturally, the big question on everyone's mind is whether Season 8 of Outlander will finally tackle it. For those of you who have been following along, stick around, because this dive is going to unpack all the angles, connections, and potential twists. So, let's jump right in. One major thread that hasn't gotten as much attention recently is the Fraser prophecy itself. This prophecy, which played a key role in Season 7 and before, was central to Gilas Duncan's earlier attempts to travel through time and harm Brianna. The prophecy suggested that a Scottish king would only be revealed after the death of a 200-year-old baby. Now, because Claire traveled forward in time while pregnant with Brianna, she technically became 2 centuries old upon giving birth. That unusual time travel twist is part of why the prophecy is so convoluted, and it's part of the reason Season 8 might finally confront it head-on. Adding to the intrigue, the first season of Outlander Blood of My Blood, the spin-off prequel, left fans with a cliffhanger that's bound to echo into the main series. This spin-off focused on Jamie and Claire's parents and revealed that, surprisingly, they actually knew each other in this version of the story. Over the course of 10 episodes, we watched Henry and Julia Beauchamp struggle against the odds to be together, and by the finale, they had finally succeeded. Of course, that success comes with a lot of questions. Even though Ellen and Brian were handfasted, they haven't been legally married yet, which could introduce complications with both of their families. Julia, while reunited with Henry, is technically married to Lord Simon Lovett, so her past still casts a shadow over her future. Even if Brian and Ellen manage to run away to avoid family drama, the final scene in Blood of My Blood Season 1 shows flaming crosses lighting up the Scottish landscape, signaling the beginning of the Jacobite rebellion. That suggests danger, tension, and separation, all of which are classic Outlander drama. One of the central cliffhangers in Blood of My Blood Season 1 is whether Henry, Julia, and their infant son William can make it through the Standing Stones. They finally escaped their captors and reached Cre na Dun, but the question of whether William can time travel is still unresolved. In Outlander, it's clear that not everyone automatically inherits the ability, so there's a real possibility that William could be left behind. Initially, Henry and Julia had a plan. One of them would pass through the stones with the baby, while the other stayed behind just in case. But with Mr. Bug closing in, the stakes rose, and Henry simply grabbed Julia's hand and put it on the Standing Stone, leaving their fate hanging in the balance. The rules of time travel here are murky. Since it's genetic, William could inherit the ability, and technically, he has already experienced some time travel because Julia was pregnant when she moved through the stones. Still, there's no guarantee he will survive the jump. One thing is certain, though, Henry and Julia won't make it back to young Claire. That part of history is fixed. Claire grew up without her parents, and that can't be changed. So, if William is left behind, Season 2 of Blood of My Blood might focus on Henry and Julia trying to reunite with him. Alternatively, the three could end up in a completely different time, which could have all sorts of implications for Outlander's main storyline. Meanwhile, Brian and Ellen's story ends with its own dramatic cliffhanger. After being essentially captive for most of Season 1, they finally find freedom in the final episode. Their plan was to settle somewhere far from family interference, but the flaming crosses across Scotland suggest that the Jacobite clans are mobilizing for their first major uprising. While we know the historical outcome, Jacobites were doomed to fail, the characters themselves don't know that, which sets the stage for tension and conflict. Brian is unlikely to die in the upcoming battles, and the same goes for many of the other key characters, but answering the call to arms may force him to confront Lord Simon Lovett again, which could complicate his life even more. Separations like this are classic Outlander storytelling, so it's expected that Brian and Ellen will face time apart, adding emotional tension that fans have come to expect. On top of that, there's Malcolm Grant's death, which further complicates matters. Brian and Ellen are the only witnesses to Malcolm Grant's death, as Ellen was absent during his wedding. That means, for the other characters, Ellen had nothing to do with it. However, Malcolm's uncle, Malcolm McKinnon Grant, is intelligent and dangerous, and it's likely he will begin to suspect the truth. Now that his nephew is dead, he may step into the role of Grant Laird, which does not bode well for Brian, Ellen, or the Mackenzies. Even though Dougal is married to Maura, forming an alliance between the clans, that doesn't erase the simmering tension. Malcolm McKinnon Grant is bound to seek revenge, and probably not through honorable means. So, how does all of this connect to Outlander Season 8? Well, prequels like Blood of My Blood often reshape our understanding of the main series, and the survival of Henry and Julia, along with the potential existence of a second child, is a major game changer. It would feel incomplete if Claire's story concluded without her discovering the truth about her parents. If Henry, Julia, and William make it through the stones, they could theoretically appear in the 1770s during the American Revolution, where Claire and Jamie are actively involved. But it seems more plausible that they would arrive at a time closer to when Claire first traveled to the 18th century, allowing their story to intersect with the ongoing faith mystery. And speaking of faith, there's a clever connection in the music. Julia sings "I Do Like to Be Beside the Seaside" to little William in Blood of My Blood, which is the same song that Fanny Pocock sings in Outlander Season 7. That song inspired Claire to theorize that Faith had survived, creating a narrative thread that ties the prequel to the main series. How exactly this all comes together in Season 8 is still uncertain, but the writers are clearly weaving a long-term plan. While we may have to wait until Blood of My Blood Season 2 to see Henry and Julia's full story, Outlander Season 8 is likely to drop hints that move the main storyline forward. The Fraser prophecy itself has been largely forgotten since Geillis Duncan was killed, but Master Raymond's return could revive it. This mysterious character seems to be orchestrating events behind the scenes, which makes it likely that he will have a role in finally resolving the prophecy that hinges so heavily on time travel. It makes sense when you consider Master Raymond's past actions. He's been guiding and manipulating characters throughout the series, often pushing them to make decisions that align with his own broader goals. It's easy to imagine that he has an interest in Brianna's fate because of how closely it ties to the prophecy and, by extension, to the Frasers' destiny. Whether his influence is overt or subtle, he's a key player in making sure certain events unfold as they are meant to. Meanwhile, the consequences of time travel continue to ripple through the narrative. The Beauchamp's survival, their potential second child, and the unresolved faith storyline all intersect with Brianna's prophecy. Each piece is like a puzzle, and Season 8 has the challenge of connecting them in a way that feels satisfying while honoring the series' history of time travel intricacies. And of course, the stakes aren't just historical or mystical, they're deeply personal. Claire and Jamie's story is always at the heart of Outlander, and how they navigate these revelations about their extended family, time travel, and magical abilities will define the emotional core of the final season. Brianna's prophecy isn't just some abstract prediction, it's a lens through which the characters' choices and destinies are measured. The beauty of Outlander is how it blends personal drama with larger historical and fantastical stakes. The prophecy, time travel, and the interconnected lives of the Frasers, Beauchamps, and other key characters all work together to create a story that's rich and layered. The series is set up to not just resolve these threads, but to do so in a way that honors the complex time travel framework it has built. Fans can anticipate both dramatic historical events and deeply personal moments as these storylines intersect, leading toward a satisfying conclusion. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.